we go. Hi everybody. We will just wait a minute and see if you guys can hear us and see us, and if you are live, if you can leave us a message and let us know that you're watching. Leave a comment just so we know that everything's working. And thank you for being here. If you're new here, I'm Lindsay and this is Jess. And we're here every Tuesday night at 7:30 answering questions that are sent in from viewers, from you guys. So the question that we're answering today is all about the NRBC and the recent change to the warm-up availability. Hi Daphne. Hi Anne. Yeah, it's a beautiful night here. It's one of those nights that we wait for all year, where it's not too hot, not too cold, and the mares and foals are out, and it's just great riding. Wish you guys could be here. So anyways, we are answering a question about the NRBC and the availability of the show arenas for schooling in the night. And this settle in, because I feel like there were a lot of opinions about this one, and we are really interested to hear whether you guys are in support of it. We're going to go ahead and explain what it means first, and in case you're not familiar with the NRBC or kind of why we show at night, or sorry, why we school at night and why this would even affect us. And if you do compete and you school at night and it's something you feel really strongly about, then we're looking forward to hearing your feedback as well. Okay, some opinions coming in already. Hi Victoria. Hi Becky. Okay, it's good to see you guys too. Hi Dominique. Okay, so do you want to tell them about the NRBC and what the change means, and then we will...
So the change that people are talking about, it's been on Facebook, it's been talked a lot between the trainers. So the NRBC, the National Reiners Breeders Classic, it's what we consider in the reining world one of the Triple Crown. There's the Futurity, the Derby, and the NRBC, which is a Derby. It's in Katy, Texas. It just happened last weekend was the finals. And I think a big shout out to a bunch of Canadian horses and people. The co-champion of it was Danny Tromboy, a French Canadian, who's lived in Oklahoma for a number of years now, but he is Canadian. And I think it was two of the horses Sean Flaird rode were both Canadian. One was Gainey Ravensburg down by Windsor. Mm-hmm. Congratulations to her. And the other lady, I apologize, I don't know who she was. I didn't look it up.
I can't think of it either now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but there was a few Canadians in the level 4 finals. So what they did at this horse show was they closed the warm-up pen, the show pen down in the nighttime for no schooling. As reiners, show horse people in most disciplines in the Western world, we are used to the show pens being open throughout the night. We can ride in them, and usually what they have, it's either a half-hour schedule or an hour schedule, where every half hour we circle, every half hour we fence or stop, and then some places have went to an hour and an hour. That's how we're used to doing it. Mm-hmm. This year they decided to shut the show arena down, and everybody was up in arms about it. Nobody likes change. Horse people were the worst for that. Everybody had opinions on both sides, and lots of valid opinions on both sides, I think. It's just nobody likes change, and they brought this one on as the first show, which is a major event, and it caused a bit of controversy. I'm sure a lot of horse show committees are looking at it as to good and bad, as to what they can change, how they can adapt it into their show, their shows and into their facilities, and what will work. We're used to being able to ride. Normal thing is they want an hour after the show to work the ground, and then an hour or two in the morning. Let's say the show starts at 8. We would normally be 6 o'clock. We'd need to be out of there, and then they go. So anybody that's never been to a major event, it sounds pretty grueling. You don't have to be in there. No. You have the option. You could do anything you want. If you're used to like a club show and stuff, it won't make any sense to you. But what it does for our horses is it gives them, and customers too, people likely more than horses, it gives them time to get used to a new facility. So entries into the NRBC are not cheap. I forget what it was, 60-some thousand to each of the co-champions that won it. They pay out a lot of money, and you want to make sure your horses and your customers are very settled in. So we get them in there, they have time to relax, get a feel for the size of the pen, the dirt, all that other stuff. They have lots of arenas at this show that you could still ride at through the day.
Yeah, it's not like that's the only place for you to ride.
Yeah, there's lots of places to ride. It's
the
a
show
big
arena,
pen and the banners and whatever.
The acoustics, the whole bit.
So what everybody didn't like was being told they couldn't. You know, nobody likes to be told something's different, and it was what it was. So Kevin Simmons says, what was the rationale? The rationale that they brought forth was better for the horses and the people. They could rest and relax. The horses could be more relaxed. There was a few opinions brought up that, you know...
So I'm going to cut you off for just a second. The purpose of this conversation is not to... is not to bash any trainers or any show committees, because putting on a horse show and trying new things is hard, and I think we both have a lot of respect for that. The purpose of this conversation is just to discuss, just to have a mature conversation, all of us to have a conversation about it.
Well, and if it's mature, I'm out.
Well, we're going to try our best. We're going to try our best to keep it mature. But it's not meant to be critical of any one person or any show committee, right? It's just a conversation
as with
about
Facebook happened. People did get bashing on the people that run these
and that's not our intent with this.
Yeah, whether I agree or disagree. Yeah. One thing I've always said for the show...
Sorry, so I cut you off. Kevin asked that question.
Right.
And you started an answer.
They brought forth a bunch of opinions on why they did it. One was, which Lindsay just explained to me today, she heard it on a podcast, was a lot of those horses had just come from the Cactus Classic, and they're tired. They need the breaks, whatever.
They just came back from a horse show.
There was a lot of opinions on it.
They're not 3-year-olds. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is they just were trying something new. So the people that run the NRBC also have a bit of a background, not a bit of a background, quite a
extensive
background in the hunter jumper world. And that is a common thing in their discipline. They brought it in with the idea that it would be a nicer thing for people to be, because
the culture at the shows.
So what happens is if one class, let's say, takes 8 to 10 hours to run, I don't sit there for 8 or 10 hours and stay at the class. I go sleep during the day. We school at night. We know when everybody shows, and we sleep through the night. One of the ways they brought it forth was that everybody would be up through the day. Everybody would be in the barns. Everybody would be communicating and engaging each other throughout the day, and they could have a better time that way.
We'd all have supper together and play cards.
Yeah. So lots of opinions got brought up. I think one of the things that really sticks in my mind is that when we go to a show, I don't feel like everybody's opinion needs to be voiced and heard. If I don't like a horse show, I'm not going to go yell and scream at somebody that I don't like how this was done or that was done. There's a better way to do it. I don't think everybody doing it over Facebook was such a...
Oh, you mean people complaining about the change?
Right.
Like people complaining about on the internet. Like,
they're putting on $1 million show here.
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, I don't like it. Well, just because I don't like something, if it's good for the group, go with it. If you don't like it, go to a different horse show.
I know. It's hard to criticize something that a board has made a decision on if we're not jumping up and volunteering to be on the board.
Right. And, I mean, I haven't ran any horse shows or like an NRHA show for 14 years, 15 years, something like that. And it's amazing how much people come forward with not their opinion in a constructive way, but they come forward with their opinion and it has to happen this way.
Yeah.
And
an expectation.
Sure, I've been told numerous times with people, you know, do it this way or we're going to leave. You know, well, as soon as they say that, I just see you later, have a good day. You can bring me something constructive, we'll play with this deal. So they brought this up. Everybody had their own opinions. And one thing that really stuck to me was everybody wanted it to suit them. So around here we do a lot of rookies, beginners, green as grass, non-pros. That's our main deal. It's a little bit different than the level 4 riders who are showing horses that have been to a bunch of shows. They've been to this show before.
That are not coming from a distance.
A distance is a huge thing. And especially that limited non-pro rookie rider who needs to get in the pen, they need to see it. They need to feel how big that pen or how wide that pen is, how long it is to, you know, how long does it take to speed up. There's a lot of things to that.
Coming from a 80 by 160 indoor in Canada, going to one of those pens.
Right. The distance, where everybody says, well, you know, I'm going to haul a distance, whatever. But they have other pen that they can ride. Like that was, I think, something that everybody forgot was that facility. I mean, pick an arena. There's tons of arenas. I think it gets really back to, you know, being comfortable at the show, making sure your horses are prepared. Did it change how people prepared their horses? Sure.
Well, it ended up, the show arenas did end up being open because there was some flooding or something in the outdoor ones. So part of the whole debate was null anyways because they did end up opening it up. But that's kind of besides the point, you know.
And we've been to shows. We were discussing one today that we were at a show a couple years ago, or this morning a couple years ago. The show committee and the show facility owners or whatever didn't communicate very well. And I can still remember the gentleman who was putting on the show. They're not going to tell us we can't do this, and it just got to be a big joke, really. But midnight come around, we're all riding horses, and they didn't even tell us. They just flicked the lights off and said, guys, get out. You can't be here past midnight. And they didn't, you know, nobody communicated, so it was, you know, that was the worst part. As long as they communicate and we know what the rules are, we can prepare a horse for anything. You know, you tell us what we are allowed to do, what we can and cannot do. We'll play that game, and the best horses will still go to the top. And there might be some that needed to be rode a little harder that didn't make it. But I mean, in the whole scheme of thing, it's going to work.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
My opinion is that I give them credit for trying something different, and I give them credit for experimenting. You know, I think that's how we get better. That's how the horse shows get better, is by experimenting with different things and trying things. I think trying to improve the culture is a good thing. I think trying to improve the, you know, the well-being of the horses is a good thing. I personally would have been really ticked if I found out, 3 weeks before the show, that that's how it was going to be run, because I myself would want to be in the show arena at night by myself, sacrificing the sleep. I've not ridden in that arena before myself. The horses that I'm riding have not. I'd be coming from a fair distance. I would have paid big entry fees. I'd be ticked. Is that what you wanted to hear?
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. It's your
doesn't
opinion.
matter. We didn't go. And for clients too. I can't imagine taking.
Well, especially a first-time person going down to the show.
That shock of being in a major arena when you haven't been to a major event before, trying to take clients and help them through that would have been.
And they offer
more
some things. So these shows, if anybody hasn't been to an NRHA show, there's a couple of days before the show where they run paid warm-ups, where you can ride in the arena. You have time in there. It's not for everybody. You don't have to.
Yeah.
And that's the same with riding at night that I think everybody forgets, is that a regular show, there's a few trainers that are famous for they will be out there all night long.
Yeah.
You know, that's how they do it. Other trainers don't like to do that. That's your decision. They're not making you go out there. You could still go into the other arenas. Somebody just put one up here about the youth and whatever. Yes, the youth and the beginners and all that stuff. But the one thing you always have to remember in this, everybody's on the same rule. And now, before we get into this, one thing I would like to say, I don't agree with it. I can look at both sides, and from a show point of view and from a trainer point of view, and there is qualities on both sides that I like. I don't like how they changed it, and they kind of sold it to everybody as better for the horses and whatever. It still takes the same amount of hours to get a horse prepared, whether it's at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. The horses are going to be tired. They're in strange stalls. There's banging. There's 1,000 horses in this. Or there's different barns. There's not 1,000 horses in one barn. They're loud. I don't care how much you shut the lights off. It's not their home. But it's going to take. Like, I know if I'm going to show a certain horse, it takes me an hour and a half to prep this horse's the night before or the day before. So I don't like when they try to sell it to me in certain ways. I find it almost offensive to listen to sometimes.
You don't like being told what to do?
Well, it feels like they're blowing smoke where it doesn't need to be blown.
Yeah.
Just tell me what the rules are.
Ahead of time.
And hopefully more than 3 weeks ahead of time, but it wasn't like they got to the show and it was changed.
No.
And I think they can change those rules as long as you know. I mean, I've been to shows where they said these are the rules. I've been to shows where they said, like, reiners will warm up for an hour at this point, and like years ago at the old Quarterama, we had a specific time for us because that was how it worked, and then they had barrel racers for a specific time. And if you know the rules, you're good about it. If they don't communicate it, then it doesn't. One of the things with whether it be a youth, and I can pick on, I think it was Becky made a comment about the youth will overcome way better than the adults. Don't use your daughter as an excuse. Youth kids, they don't care. They just pull their hat down and get their job done. They're happy to go. It's the parents that worry about it more than anything. And in saying that, yes, young kids or beginners and limited on pros, it's so important that they get in there to feel comfortable. And one of the things that gets, I think, overlooked a lot of time, you're only in the show pen for 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So much of the show revolves around other things than the actual 3.5 minutes you're in the show pen.
I was just going to say this, yeah.
Some of the funniest things I've heard over the years about, like when we come back from any of the bigger events and we'll say to somebody, like, what was your favorite?
Did you have a good time? Did you love showing at Congress? Did you love showing at the futurity? Yeah.
And beginners, I think it's usually never the pen. They never talk about their show.
Yeah.
They talk about they were fencing in the warm-up pen and all of a sudden they looked over and there was some big name trainer fencing right along with them.
Yeah.
Or they, you go to Oklahoma, you go to Cattleman's, the restaurants, you go as a group, you do a lot of things together.
Riding in the middle of the night is one of the big things.
Right. The camaraderie that comes from showing. And I am not saying it's not important, that 3.5 minutes. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
You prepare for that. You feel great if you did good. You feel horrible if you don't. But most people, when we ask them, and I do this all the time, I'll ask people what their favorite things were.
Yeah, even if
it's
they do
always
really well.
something different. Mm-hmm. For sure. Give me 1 second.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening, but somebody just pulled in, so I guess Jesse will take that. I'm going to look and see what some of these comments are. Yeah, Cheesecake Factory. Most important part of the horse show. Somebody needed directions, I think. Sally, you said Jesse makes a good point about taking the same amount of time to get a horse ready no matter what time of the day. Do you think giving the horses the nighttime off would make a difference to their stress? So he can answer that one when he gets back. He's coming right back. But I think, not that you asked for my opinion on this, Sally, but I think what Jesse said about it taking the same amount of time, there are trainers, and Laura had left a message about this earlier, there are trainers that take too much time and override their horses. So that was one of the...
But they would also override them if it was in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
That's not going to change that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Sally... Sally said that you made a good point about it taking the same amount of time to get a horse ready. Do you think giving the horses the nighttime off would make a difference to their stress? I think you kind of said that, like, no.
Some horses, yes, but most horses, they learn, like, after they've been to a few shows, and this is a derby too. Remember, these are older horses. This isn't 3-year-olds. Yeah. They get used to. You'll go out there in the middle of the day and they'll be sleeping. They learn to sleep in the day.
Some of them.
Did they keep
keeping the paid warm-ups?
Oh yes, they'll never get rid of the paid warm-ups. Only because it makes the show money, and anybody who runs a horse show needs to pay the bills. So no, they're never going to get rid of the paid warm-ups.
Good point about the youth.
So there was a thing on there about traffic too, and that was an interesting point, I think. Because they did allow, was it an hour or two?
I am freezing. Remember we said I always get cold? I'm freezing.
They allowed 2 hours after the show for the people the next day to get their horses in. Now remember, there's a lot of people trying to get in a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
As where when they schedule it over when it's open all night, what happens is 2 in the morning, there might be 40, 50 people in the arena still. 4:30 in the morning, not that many people. So you can plan when you want to go out, and you figure that out. So they condensed that time where you still got in the arena. It wasn't that they just said you got to show, first time in the pen. It was just different.
Daphne would want to be in there.
You won't get in there by yourself, Daphne. At these shows where they run that many horses, you'll never be by yourself.
Change makes people uncomfortable. I understand both sides. When I went to my first NRHA show under your guidance, it was extremely valuable for me to get in the show pen at night. I feel a bit differently about it now. Personally, I need more time showing, not night riding. I've always found night riding very stressful, and I'm not sure the benefits outweigh the stress. I also give them credit for trying something new. Yeah.
One thing I can say about that, as a coach, you might not appreciate the night riding.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Go show without it. Let's see how it works.
When you go to the same showgrounds all the time, you don't feel so bad. But when you go to a new show and you go to a bigger show, those same feelings that you had at your first couple of shows, they all come flooding back. You need to spend that time camping out on your horse again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's so important. It gets them relaxed. You can relax them in that pen.
It's like warm-up pen shock, right? Mm-hmm. People go to a big show, whether it's their first time at an ORHA event or their first time at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds or wherever, Congress. Everybody goes a little bit goofy.
Because I always joke about Congress. When you walk in the pen for the first time, turn left at center, and there's the big Congress sign. Everybody
all the
goes.
Signs and the trucks and
And you go through the big gateway at Oklahoma City. There's that to it. Yeah. And when you can go through there a few times, or if you have a run-in pattern and run through there a few times and get really comfortable with it, and your horse gets really comfortable, that's a huge confidence booster. So now you're not fretting about that all day. Yeah. You went, okay, last night I nailed that, I got that, I'm good to go. And these are major events too. You're not paying $50 an entry fee. You're paying over $1,000 US an entry fee. You want to know that your horse is there and ready to go show.
Or if you've paid a trainer for a couple years to get ready for a big horse show like that, and then you find out that your horse isn't going to be able to get in there on its own, you're going to be annoyed too. Right? It's not just the riders. It's the owners.
I think one of the things that comes from the hunter-jumper mentality, which is where this came from on the show management's point of view, one of the things that's different with 100 Jumpers is they have more schooling shows than they have major events. They don't show 3-year-old fraternities. Like, they have some developing horse things, but they don't take those 3-year-old. Like, nobody's saying that the Oklahoma City 3-year-old event is going to be this way. I think some people got ahead of themselves thinking they're trying to change this for all of them. And I don't know, maybe in 2 years it might. I don't know where the future holds, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big thing, is it came from a discipline that's used to older aged horses more, and it can be accommodated in a different way. There is a lot of, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more debate and talked about before next year at the show, just whether or not it goes on the same way or not.
Yeah.
But
Or whether it happens at any other shows. So let's ask this. If we are headed to a show, whenever we're headed to our next show, is this something that you would support? Just leave in the comments whether you would want the show arenas shut down, you're for it, or whether you want them open all night.
and remember, you're not forced to go ride
against it. Because I think that, to me, this is the other problem. The general population at the show wasn't consulted, and I think, Kevin, you said it'd be nice if they had asked the stakeholders. I think it would have been nice to ask more than just the board, assuming
And
that that's
maybe
what they
they
did.
did. I
Maybe
mean,
they did. Yeah, we don't know, but it doesn't.
Unfortunately, with a
Doesn't
lot
feel
of
that way.
rules, and it's easy to bash the NRHA on this one. When they make rules,
Yeah.
they're pretty famous for
Catering.
what happens to the top 20 riders, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think the horse shows in general, I think, do that, but NRHA has been very famous for that.
Yeah.
And they always try to sell it as it's good to the industry. And up here in Canada, we always say, no, it's what's good for the top 20
Dominique.
riders.
Look at Dominique's comment. Can you read it?
And there's
You belong on a board.
and that's one of the things, some
Yeah.
horses do better by not being, like, there's horses that we don't ride hard
Yeah,
at night,
they
and
don't
there's
have
some
to.
that do. And that's for sure. One of the things that definitely got brought up through some of the people that run this show is a group of them, and they don't like to ride at night. So everybody said, well, it's their own personal thing. I'd hate to believe it was their personal belief that they were going to, change this, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But NRHA has done, there's always a big joke. One of the judges years ago told it to me, and I still laugh about it this day, that every single rule NRHA has ever made, there is a person it was directly for. And I think with a lot of these decisions like this, it feels that way. Whether it was or not, it just feels that way. But
I'm gonna see this one. Tara wrote, someone who rode in a different discipline for years where we didn't get to be in the show ring before, I would just want to know beforehand so I could train and prepare. It's about communication. It isn't a deal breaker. So how much notice do you need? Like, I feel like as reiners, we expect to be able to ride at night. How much notice do you need? If a show is going to do that, what's the right amount of time?
yeah, I feel like 3 weeks. I mean, I'm sure they talked about it to all the major, trainers and all the people that it affected at Katy, Texas. And you're right. Like, we can all get, and we're all on the same playing field. So that's the big thing.
The sunset, yeah. Yeah, Melissa, we love sitting here and getting that sunset. I support the night riding. It should be a choice. First few U.S. Nationals, I needed the night or very early morning riding. Don't like it, but
Sure.
yeah.
And the big thing with it is you don't like it, but it sure gets you comfortable in the pen.
What did I do to the comments?
So for anybody that doesn't know, the gentleman that wrote that, Kevin, shows Arab horses,
There we go.
and
a vote with the membership a few months before, Lacey said. Sorry.
So I was just saying, like, he shows Arabs and some nice Arab reiners. But there's Arabs as a breed, they need a lot of quiet time, bringing their brain back to you. You know, they're going to look around, and so is our cow horses. Our cow horses are very similar to the reiners. You know, they're mentally just a little more out there a little bit and stuff. And they need that time to just chill out. You know, and that's important, or we find it's very important in those arenas. You can work one in arena out the side all you want, but you put them in that one main show arena where the lights might be brighter, the banners are different.
Yeah, what show was that at last year where all the horses spooked at the Yellowstone banner?
That was a cow horse show, and they took the banner down because they put it up. Didn't they put it up like through the night or in the morning or something? And yeah, they don't like change, and there's nothing worse than driving a long distance to get taken out by something silly like that. And yeah, everything, as long as we know the rules, we can play with it. You know, you can agree or disagree with how they run it. Not so much the NRBC, because you pay into them since they're babies and whatnot, but like I say it at the regular shows, if I don't like something, I can voice my opinion. You know, if they ask me, I will say. But the other thing is, I just don't go back. I don't care if I don't like the people or the horse show. I just don't go back.
Yeah.
You have a choice. That's the nice part about it.
Cheesecake.
Oh, somebody must be from the Cheesecake Factory.
Lacey, I really like that. A vote with the membership. Something like that. That feels like it'd be a lot of work to do, but I
sure,
agree.
you take the NRBC, you know, or I don't know how many entries there was exactly. Let's say you took 1,000 horses, sent out the vote, and said, where do we go with it?
Yeah.
The problem with it being horse people, you'd have 20% agree, 20% disagree, and the other 60% would give you an opinion that wasn't even on the voter card. So it'd be really hard to get everybody on the same ballpark. But I mean, I think that's what needs to happen at a lot of those things, is get a general consensus of it, not just from the 20 riders that's your buddies and are on the top 20 list, but everybody break down through.
Yeah. And maybe the amount of time could have been changed.
And I'm sure that's something they're going to look at too. Instead of 2 hours, maybe they'll give us 4 or 5.
Close it down from midnight till 4 a.m. or something, but still leave some of that night riding.
I'm sure they'll look at it and figure out where it comes from. And it's unfortunate. Like, another way I heard it sold a little bit to everybody was it'll be so much better for the assistant trainers and the grooms and all the working people. Well, that's a problem in your barn, you know. And trust me, we've been to shows with the people that helped me look like death warmed over by the 3rd day, and there's a point where, as
we all look like death warmed over by the 3rd day.
Well, there's a point where you got to say to your assistants who've been working those first couple days really hard, go to bed.
Yeah, it's not
you know,
the show's
maybe I will sweep the ground
if you're overworking your staff.
Hire another person, or you know, there's lots of times, even customers.
Be careful here, yeah.
Well, there's even times with customers, if they're tired, you know, I'll tell them, I'll go ride your horse, you go to bed. You know, now we're at the point you're comfortable in there, now you need this. And that's a decision you have to make between everybody. And
yeah, Dominique's saying 7 p.m. is super early. It is. I would be curious to know. I haven't heard anybody who has said whether they felt like it improved the show or not. It'll be interesting to see what the
well, the 2 guys that tied to win it will definitely say it was better for the show.
Yeah. But like, I agree with improving the culture, because I think that's one of the things that's kind of shocking to people when they come to their first NRHA show is like, oh, well, like, do we all have a barbecue later? Or do we all like, and a lot of times we can't because we're so busy. You know, it's so much work. It's so much work to go to a horse show and show for 3 or 4 days. Like, and that's one that we try very hard to do, is make sure that there's a time when everybody as a whole group goes out. Some of the smaller shows we'll even do, like on a Friday night or whatever, we have like a potluck between everybody, and haven't done one of those in a few years. Go for ice cream or
2021 we might not have a potluck, but
no,
those days that you can remember a long time ago.
back in excuse me, back in the day when you would eat something that somebody else brought over.
But that's
Yeah.
a personal decision, not a horse show decision for us to do that.
Yeah.
And for our customers to get together and do that. The show didn't tell me I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
You know, that was a decision we made at a certain time that we can go do
You
this.
can tell who shows with us because they're all commenting on restaurants through this whole conversation. They're all saying Cheesecake Factory, Olive Garden.
Well, and there was just one on there about somebody, Sally asked, like her husband said about the culture with a party and stuff.
Yeah.
There are parties if you want to go to them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
Yeah.
the big thing is there are
Yeah.
draw parties and get-together parties and cocktail parties and stuff if you choose to go to them. If we're riding, you know, you can choose where you want to go. I mean, you want to go to the NRBC and sit down at the beer tent all week, that's up to you. There's things to do. You know, we want to prepare our horses, get that right. But as coaches, we really believe the whole weekend has to be fun. If you went and had a horrible
It has to be
weekend
fun, yeah.
and won your class, you're not going back to the horse show. So you have, as a coach, or just as a person going on their own without a coach, if you don't make it fun, that's your fault. You know, this is your hobby. You need to enjoy it. You need to have fun. You need to, and if you're not having fun, that wasn't the show's fault. That was,
Yeah.
you know, that's a personal thing. You need to go do something you enjoy and change that around, whether it be, you know, you go to dinner with some of your friends. And we have some customers that do that. You know, we have some that, you know, if there's a beer tent, we know where we'll find them. And others, you know, there's little groups where they always go out to breakfast together or dinner. And
Yeah, or like filling the back of the truck with water for the kids to splash around in. And
sure, and you
There's all
remember
kinds of
that way
stuff.
more than you remember the horse show itself as a whole. I mean, everybody remembers the rides a little bit, but they will definitely talk about the other stuff more.
yeah, there's joy in the grind. Take the biggest steps of progress at the shows because of all the riding. Yeah. The nighttime riding's fun. I can see why people don't want to get rid of that. Sometimes. The first night, the nighttime riding is fun.
Yeah, and you choose when to go to sleep. Like, I think that's the big thing is, especially on the NRBC when it just happened, nobody likes being told.
Nobody likes change, and nobody likes being told. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. They you know, I'm sure they've already talked about what will happen for next year, and I'm sure, you know, there's been some people on here with different disciplines and different breeds of horses. You know, but that's just, they'll all be talking about it. I don't see, well, feasible. It is feasible if you want to make it work.
Yeah, there's other places to ride.
You know, there's other arenas. You can still lope them around. You can still stop them. Will it be? We're just so used to how we've always done it
Yeah.
that we don't want to change. And I don't want to change. Don't get me wrong.
We don't
I'm
think
not
we should
for it.
have
But
to change. Yeah.
if if Congress said we can only do this,
Excuse
then you know, if you're going to go Congress, that's what you got to go by.
Yeah.
And everybody is in the same set of rules.
Yeah, just like when you go to Congress, you know you're going to be on concrete. You know, like there's things at every show that we adapt to, right? So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what shows implement it. You know, from a show point of view, there's certain things that it makes a little sense on. Like at those major events, they hire stewards all through the night. You know, so you take a 10-day horse show. If there's a couple arenas and you have a steward at every arena, and you have to pay somebody to, and they have to be a carded steward, and they're going to watch over that all night. Now all of a sudden you're writing a check at the end of their show for a lot of money, you know, and it gets back to, you know, they got to make money as a show. They have to make money. So they have the stewards, they have the guys on the drag to prepare, you know, every half hour or every hour they drag the pens at most of these shows. So now you've paid for somebody to be there too. You know, Amber said too much traffic. Well, there's a couple of those arenas, Amber, that we never go to. Congress would be a tough one. Katie has more arenas. but you know, there's a couple arenas that we never go to when we're at the Congress because they're inconvenient for us to be further away.
Well, that we could use.
It could still be done. You know, so what, you have to walk, you know, a little bit across the showgrounds. By the time I've been at Congress eating all that junk food, I should likely just walk across the showgrounds, but that's just me. I know nobody else eats junk food at Congress, but the most shows it can be done. Very few shows we go to will only have the warm-up pen and the show pen. It's not convenient for us, but from a coaching point of view, I mean, I would definitely like to see the arenas stay open. You know, I don't know how they're going to do this for next year. I'm very curious. Even though I haven't, you know, put on horse shows for years, I am always so curious how people run their horse shows. You know, any shows we go to, I'm always very appreciative of the people that put them on if they do a good job and you know, try and do stuff. Even if it doesn't go hugely successful, if they try, boy, I'll do whatever I can to help out and surely try to help the show. And there's been some really neat show committees over the years that I've been to their shows, and I watch it quite a bit on how the good shows put stuff on. And we've discussed this, me and some of my friends that are trainers. You know, the biggest thing that makes a good show committee is when you walk in the office and they have a smiley face with, how can I help you? You know, friendly people that are there to help and just nice people. It's a huge thing, because that's a horrible, horrible job, because they've been up way too many hours.
Yeah.
And they don't get thanked enough when they do a good job. You know, so these people trying to change something with the horse show, I mean, I definitely don't think it's a bad idea to try.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there's some shows where it fits into. You know, it can work.
It feels like the consensus for this group is that we would rather have the opportunity to ride at night.
Oh, sure.
In the show pen.
We were, just a silly story, but we were at a show, this would be going back 8 or 9 years ago, and it was a reining show that was in conjunction, it was at the same facility as a jumping show. And I did not know that the rule was you weren't allowed to ride after a certain time. And it was my fault. I didn't know the rule, and I didn't go look. Well, I just went and rode and put my horse away and seen a bunch of golf carts going around. The next morning I was in the show office, and they were talking about this person that had been riding around. And the story got way better, because the story turned into somebody was riding around bareback in the middle of the night in the dark. I didn't think I was that talented. I know I couldn't do that. And I had to laugh. I said to the people that ran the show, I says, I think I know who your culprit is. You know, and I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I just...
They weren't expecting that.
Yeah. But it happens. But at those, like, that was just a small horse show up here. It was nothing major. It was no big deal. But no, it can be done. And I'm sure in the next couple of years there'll be shows, try different things, you know, hours that we could work on or something. Because the show committee needs rest too. That's the one thing too. Is, you know, if we're out there riding, they have to have people around. They have to have stewards. They have to have drag people. They have to have, you know, and it costs money. But they have to have somebody around, because stuff happens, and there's a lot to it.
Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff in here, and we know that everybody feels strongly about food. So, thank you, Nancy dressing up like a duck. Okay, we need to cut it off here. This is our sign.
We'll have another Facebook Live about Nancy dressing up as a duck.
Yeah. Thank you.
We should do that one of them. Funniest horse show stories that had nothing to do with showing a horse.
No, I don't think we should.
That are LPG appropriate.
LPG? Okay, we need to cut this off. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your input and having a nice conversation about this. Thanks for being here with us, and we hope you will be here next week on Tuesday at 7:30. We'll be back, and have a great evening, guys. We had a great sunset tonight.
It's been a great day here today. All day it's just been so nice to ride outside.
Yeah,
It's been wonderful.
it has. Okay, thanks you guys. Good night.
Have a good night.